This month, we celebrate 150 years of Nebraska's statehood. Our state was built by pioneers, from homesteads in Beatrice to the state capitol and beyond. The generations before us set high standards of stewardship, hard work, and most importantly, care for our neighbors. Today, we're taking time to honor and reflect on the pioneers who established and shaped our state's character. Let's start with the millions of men and women who settled Nebraska when it was known as the Great American Desert. In 1846, an explorer described our state as a barren, trackless waste. That changed with the Homestead Act. The Homestead Act made land ownership accessible to anyone, from married men to divorced or widowed women, former slaves, even immigrants. People of totally different backgrounds and means could legally own 160 acres of American land. Of course, there was a catch. The Homestead Act gave settlers property deeds only after they worked and lived on the land for 5 years. Your background didn't matter. Your care of the land did matter. Homesteaders struggled through droughts, blizzards, floods, and plagues. Many didn't last the 5 years. The ones who did cultivated the land and grew relationships with their neighbors. By 1900, almost 69,000 people had claimed land in Nebraska under the Homestead Act, the largest number of any state in the Union. Crops thrived and herds grew as the land and its settlers flourished. But we didn't take the land for granted. One Nebraska pioneer saw the costs of building and development on local forests and ecosystems. In 1872, Julius Sterling Morton, newspaperman, politician, and agricultural advocate, proposed a day to plant trees across our state. He cared about stewarding the land. Each generation takes the earth as trustees, he said. J. Sterling suggested the legislature hold a competition each year to plant trees in Nebraska. First place would be $25 in books. It took 10 years for the government to approve his plans, but Arbor Day plans went ahead, sponsored by the Nebraska Agricultural Board. On his first Arbor Day, Nebraskans planted more than 1 million trees. J.D. Smith, a farmer near Lincoln, won first place, single-handedly responsible for 35,000 trees. In 1885, the legislature made Arbor Day official. Within 20 years, the celebration spread to almost every state in the Union. Today, people in more than 42 countries mark Arbor Day, from Germany to South Africa and Australia. Another Nebraska pioneer changed the way we practice politics. Senator George Norris spent 40 years in Congress, and those many years convinced him that special interests held too much power in Nebraska politics. To him, the problem started in a bicameral system, especially when the two legislative bodies passed bills back and forth in closed-door meetings. In 1923, George Norris started a 10-year campaign to establish one legislative body in our state, the unicameral. Using his own money, he made the case across Nebraska, arguing that it would save time, talk, and money. By 1934, the silver-haired granddad had persuaded enough of his neighbors to get on the ballot for a statewide referendum. It passed by almost 10,000 votes. No other state has a government like ours, and probably not every state should. That's the beauty of federalism. Our politics reflect the unique culture of Nebraska. The unicameral is a Nebraska monument to working together, to getting along, and to accountability. We don't always agree on every policy decision, but we talk about problems and solutions with openness and with respect. From the halls of the unicameral to the homesteads and even the war effort, we never lost sight of what was most important: caring for each other. During World War II, one Nebraska town's hospitality reached millions of U.S. troops. North Platte was a major hub for the Union Pacific Railroad, where trains spent 10 minutes to fill their tanks. In 1941, folks in the city heard that a local unit would be rolling through North Platte. Ray Wilson, a 26-year-old saleswoman and a sister of the unit's captain, joined more than 300 people at the station to meet them. 2 trains of servicemen came through, but the boys of the 134th weren't on board. "Well," Ray announced, "I'm not taking my cookies home with me." And as she stepped forward, the whole crowd followed, handing up Christmas presents to total strangers. That night, Ray launched the North Platte Canteen, a hospitality initiative for servicemen on the way to the war. She and her volunteers met their first train on Christmas Day with fruit, candies, and, as always, encouragement. The soldiers on board would eventually become POWs in the Philippines. Who knows how much kindness of those women would have meant to them then. The North Platte Canteen grew from a few women with baskets to a fully stocked waiting room with sandwiches, coffee, cakes, and dancing. Thousands of volunteers staffed the North Platte Canteen, and many more donated food and money. Sometimes as many as 5,000 troops would come through on a day. No wonder so many men from all across the country remembered the canteen long after the war had ended. That's Nebraska, treating everyone like family, spending time and rations to honor troops who are protecting our freedom. In recent years, we've seen that same generous spirit and care in folks' response to the disaster in Pilger. In June of 2014, twin tornadoes ripped through the town of Pilger, killing 2 people and destroying 78 buildings in just minutes. Some people might not consider a village of 352 residents a top state priority. Well, they're not from Nebraska. 2,000 volunteers flooded to the town the weekend after the destruction, sorting through the rubble and bringing residents meals and supplies. Over the next few months, help would keep rolling in, including more than $400,000 in donations. One retired teacher drove 90 miles twice a day to help. Another little girl sent $70 she'd made at a lemonade stand. Pilger was the town too tough to die. It wasn't going anywhere, not if Nebraskans had anything to say about it. These are just a few of the stories of our state's 150 years of history. Each one illustrates the pioneering spirit of hard work, stewardship of the land, and care for our neighbor that makes our state so great. Happy birthday, Nebraska. May the legacy of the homesteaders, caretakers of the land, statesmen, and volunteers guide you for the next 150 years.